Hello. Now we're going to look at the critical values that we talked about in the last chapter. Uh, the number z star, or we could replace that with t star if we don't know the population standard deviation, is the probability lying to the right under the standard normal curve is what we call the upper p critical value. And this could be z star or t star. Now, keep in mind we have all of these values below it, and your z or t star is up here. Now, to find that practically, if we want to find z star for an 80% confidence interval. Now 80% confidence interval, we don't know where it is exactly on there. But if I spread this out 80% from here to here, if we say that's 80% of the data, and we put a normal distribution on top, your z star is your value right here. Now, using a calculator, we would use the inverse norm function, but we want to find out how far up this goes. So if this is 80% here, that means there's 10% on each side. So really what we want to do is we're looking, there's 90% of the values that are at or below z star. So when you type it in your calculator, you do inverse norm of 0.9 rather than 0.8. So if you hit second bars, go down to inverse norm, which should be number 3, 0.9, that should give you a value of 1.28. All right, now let's try some more. So we know 80% confidence interval is 1.28. Let's try 90. So if I do a 90% confidence interval, if I do a 90% confidence interval, we're going to have 90% in the middle. So that means 5% on each side. So we do an inverse norm of 9.95. So if I do inverse norm, 0.95, that's 1.64. And that's the value there. And so on and so on until you get 85, 90. No, let's do 85. So 85, if 85% of the values are between here and here, that means 15% are on both these sides. So that's 7.5 here and 7.5 here. So this value down here is going to be 92.5. So I do an inverse norm of 9.925, and so that gives us 1.43. Now you can actually find z star uh, on the tables that AP gives you. If you look at the t distribution, not the z, they give you the intervals. And because when t goes up to infinity, it becomes a z distribution. So if you look at 80% confidence interval, that first value right there is our z star. Or our 90% confidence interval will be 1.65. 95 would be 1.69. Now the only time you'd actually need that formula that or the method that I gave earlier is when it doesn't hit one of these values. So if it doesn't hit one of these values perfectly, then use the method that I gave you earlier.